In this tutorial, I'm just going to show you how to do a Vericut project from start to finish using code that you've already written. And I'm going to look at the easiest ways of doing it and go step by step. So we're going to start out by opening up Vericut just from launching it from your desktop. And we want to open up a template. So I'm going to go with File, Open. Now when this comes up, I'm going to go from Working Directory to Library. And in here I'm looking for a 3-axis mill template for inch. So I click it, hit open, and this comes in like so. Now this is already what I had open, but you'll see I have a machine over on the one side, and I can use my scroll wheel and my mouse to go in or out. I can press down on the scroll wheel and move around, and I can get rotation. And then over on the other side I have a workpiece, which is blank at the moment until I go through and set it up. So I'm going to go down through this tree. So under Setup, what I'm looking for in here is that under G code, I want to have Scan NC Program Files checked so that it can do canned cycles. If you don't have this checked, you can't do canned cycles. You can do them, but it won't verify correctly. For control, I want to double click on the control. And when this opens up, I want to find the control that I'm actually using. So if I look through here, I have all sorts of controls. For instance, in this case, let's go with a Haas Mini Mill control and hit open. Let's say Haas Mini Mill. Now I'm looking at my machine here, and it's actually a 3-axis mill, which is fine. But if I wanted to, I could change this to a Haas Mini Mill. So I could double click this and look through here, and I can see, okay, I have a Haas VF2 or a Haas Mini Mill. They give you little previews over here. I have a Haas VB1. My guess is the Haas Mini Mill is probably closest to what we're going to be using. VF2 is not bad either. I'm going to go with the Mini Mill and hit open. And now I have the machine that I'm actually using here showing up on my screen. Alright, so I have my Haas Mini Mill for my machining control. And working on down, if I were to try to set up a fixture of some sort, I could use fixture, but I'm just going to go straight to stock. And under stock, I am going to go down way to the bottom down here, and I'm going to see a spot that says add model. I'm going to click on this and choose block, because I want to add a block to my part. It comes up and it automatically shows me a 1 by 1 by 1 block. Well, that's not what I want. I want to actually go with a 3 by 2 by 0.250 block. If I right click on my screen over on this side, I can fit it to my screen, and I can do the same rotation with my mouse, middle mouse button. And you'll see that my origin's down in the lower left corner at the bottom. So just note that. We will work with it a little later. I can zoom in on my machine, and I can see it's on my table here. Of course, now with this machine type, it's a little different because I have a door on here, and that gets a little in the way, right? But we'll have to deal with it. I can change my stock to whatever color I want. I'm good with what it is. Alright, so I'm going to keep going down. I'm not worried about design, collision, travel limits at the time. On my coordinate system, I have a program 0. And that is set up as my stock. It's attached to my stock. And then I have G-code offsets. Now under my G-code offsets, I'm going to double click it so that this opens up where I see subsystem 1, registry run from tool. And I'm going to double click on that. Now down here it says configure program 0. Now if I want my program 0 to be in the right spot, I need to make sure that I get it set up. Now my program 0 up here is where my part is theoretically programmed from. So let's go back up to that one. And in here I'm going to see a spot that says position. Now it's defaulted to the lower left corner at the bottom. If I click in this box, it'll turn yellow, and now I can go in and click wherever I want. So say it was the center of my part, I could click here. That's my new program 0. That's not where I wanted it. I want for my part, I want it in this lower left-hand corner at the top. So if I ever need to make changes, I just click it again until this turns yellow, and I go in and pick where I want. So I want right here. I'm going to fit it back to my screen. Zoom out a little bit, zoom in. And I'll see that this is up at the top in the lower left-hand corner. So that's my part 0. I could rename that if I wanted to be G54. So instead of part 0, I could say G54. That way I could tell, okay, that's my G54 right where I was programming from. So down into here I have my program 0, my subsystem. Now for my subsystem, I want to change this so that it's my work offset. So I'm going to say, okay, work offsets. In here, I want to use register 54. And then I want to keep going down, and I want to say that to go from spindle, I want to change that to tool. So I'm going to find here I have tool. So it's going to go from the tip of my tool down to, instead of being a component origin, I want to change this to a coordinate system origin. And it's my G54. Now if I hadn't renamed that to G54, this would say program 0. So I have that set up. Now I would want to set up all my tools. Now I'm going to have 4 tools in this case. I'm going to show you how to do those. So I would go to tooling, and I would double click on it to get this page open here. And I want to add 4 tools to my part, but it doesn't matter how many tools you have, it's going to all work out the same. So I'm going to say add tool new mill. Now in here I'm going to choose what type of tool I want. I want to have end mill, ball end mill, bull nose, and so on. I want to go with an end mill, and I want to have a diameter of 0.250. So 0.250. A height offset is the length of my tool. So I wanted to say, okay, in this case maybe 2.0. Flute length 1.0. Shank diameter 0.250. You could change the color of it. I'm going to make it a different color here. And then up on top here I name it. So in this case I want to have a 1/4 inch end mill. And I hit add. Now I accidentally added a second one here, so I'm just going to delete that. So I have my 1/4 inch end mill, and you'll see down here I have a driven point, and this is where it drives the tool from. But if I rotate this down, I can add what's called a gauge point. And the gauge point for the most part is just how far you want this to stick out of your turret or the holder. So in here I would click in the gauge point box, and then if I move over to my part I could add a gauge point. So I want it to be the center of my tool up on top. I click, and I have my gauge point. Now I'd go through and do this for the rest of my tools. So I'm going to add tool new mill. My second tool is a drill with diameter 0.375, 90 degree for an angle because I'm using a spot drill. Length of the tool, we'll say 2, flute length 0.250, and shank diameter 0.375. I'm going to change this to a different color and hit add. Close. Now you'll see in this case I didn't name the tool right away. But if I right click on this tool I can say rename, and I can call this a 90 degree spot drill. Now that tool's named, and if I click on these you'll see how it switches between my tools. Now for my 90 degree spot drill I want to click on the gauge point and choose this top center. Now I have a gauge point for both. So I'm going to add tool new mill again, and this time I'm doing a drill 0.1875 with a 118 angle. Maybe I'll make it 3 inches out and a flute length of 0.5. Shank diameter will match the drill. And I'll make this one a different color. Naming this one a 3/16 drill. So add that. And I close this. So I got my 3/16 drill. Click the gauge point, choose the top center. And my last tool is Add Tool, New Mill. And I want this one to be a ball end mill with a diameter 0.125, a height of 3, flute length of 1. I'm just kind of making this stuff up as I go. Shank diameter 0.125, and let's make the color of this one blue. ID, which is your name, is a 1/8 ball end mill. Alright, and I hit add and close. So I got it. I am missing my gauge point, so I'm going to choose my gauge point up here. And I have it all ready to go. Now this is a separate file than your Vericut file. It's embedded in the Vericut file, but you need to save this as well. So I'm going to hit the red X up here, and don't worry, it'll ask me to save. So I hit that and it says, okay, values are modified. Do you wish to save before closing? Yes, or we lose everything. So I say yes, and I'm now going to save this to a location. Now I've yet to make a location to save any of this stuff. So what I need to do is open up Windows Explorer. So I'm going to minimize this here. And this would have opened up for me, and I want to then find my location I want to save it. In my case, I want to save to my removable disk or my flash drive. So I double click that, and I'm going to make a new folder for this project. I'm going to call this Project 1. So I made a folder, and now I'm going to double click on this folder, and you'll see it's empty because I just made it. But that's where I'm going to want to store everything. So I'm going to close this, and in here then I'm going to search, and I should then find this in my list somewhere. So I'm going to have my Transcend, which is my removable, at Project 1. So that's the file I want to save in, and I want to name this Project 1 Tools, just so I can kind of keep it in order. And I hit save. So now that has saved this file for my tools. Now while I'm at it, I might as well save this whole project as well. So I'm going to go File, Save As. Make sure you do Save As, or you might have the chance of overwriting the template, which would be bad. So I'm going to go Save As. I'm going to search for my flash drive. So I have my Transcend drive, in my case Project 1, and I'm going to then name this Project 1, and I hit save. So now I've saved two files, Project 1 project, which is project1.vc project, and a tool list. So if I were to go back into Windows Explorer and look under my projects, I would see I have two files here, Project 1 Tools and Project 1 VC Project. So I can close that. Alright, so I'm pretty close to being able to verify this. I yet to have a G-code, so that's going to cause me a little issue. But I've written one already. So if I look here, you'll see that I already have one written. I'm not going to show you how to write this because that's the point of the G-code class, right? You got to learn how to do it on your own. So here's the project that you're going to be given. Looks like so. There's your code. And I save this as project1.nc. Now this is just saved to a random spot. So right now I'm going to save this as, and I'm going to save this to that same drive. So I'm going to go to my flash drive, project 1, and call project1.nc. Hit save. And it's going to tell me that you're about to save a document in text-only format. which is good because that's what we want for NC code. Alright, so I can close that file. If I look in my Internet Explorer again, you'll see that I have 3 files now. One's project1.nc, that's my actual code. If I were to double click this, you'd see it open up. That's the code that I had written. Alright, now I need to put that code into this file. Right now it's not linked to it. So if I look right here, I have NC programs. I double click this, and I'm now going to search for that file I just saved. So I'm going to find transcend project 1. Now when I do that, it finds only the projects that will work, the ones that are compatible. So I click project 1 here, I find project 1, and I need to now add it to the file. So I hit this little arrow over button, it's listed, and I hit OK. Now I have project1.nc. So I would actually be ready to do all my simulation. I'm going to save this again, so just file save. And now I can actually look at the code. So up on top you have a bunch of icons. I don't use too many of them. The one that I do use a lot of is View NC Program. And I want to reset this. So if it comes in with a bunch of gibberish, which it does sometimes in the new file, you have to hit the reset button down here, and that'll reset the code. So now I can see this is the actual code, and I have a little blue arrow next to it that will step down as I step through this. So right here, I can hit this button to step through, this button to run it. So I want to hit step, 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 and as you can see, it's adding over here, it is adding this blue line next to each line of code as I go. So I'm just going to step it through, and at some point you'll see my machine change. Now you may not have noticed here, but it did a tool change. So I'm going to reset this again so you can watch it. Step it through, and when it gets to the T1M6 line, okay, right here when I click, you're going to see a tool change. So you may have just saw that jump over, but it was doing a tool change. And now you see my tool is in here. Now, what's kind of funny is it doesn't show a holder because I'm not getting into the whole how to draw holders and everything. I just want to see a tool. Maybe in some more advanced ones I'll show you how to make holders and stuff. So there's my tool, my part. So I'm going to keep stepping through. It's going to go to a G54. It's going to come down. Now you see it came down here. And I have my part here. Step it again, it's going to plunge down. Cuts across my part. And it will just start doing some more of the code. It's going to get the spot drill, so it does a tool change. Moves over. It's going to spot my holes. Does a tool change up here. Comes over, drills my holes. Does a tool change, and now it's going to do the engraving. Now I can slow down the speed on this so I can watch it cut a little bit slower. So C and C. It's going to turn off my coolant, bring the machine to the home position, optional stop, and rewind the program. So it has run my code, and everything looks pretty good. So there is a quick walkthrough. But we're going to look at this and say, well, what if there was a mistake? What if something wasn't quite right in here? Maybe I wanted to change the depth of a countersunk call. Well, if I reset my program, I can close my NC program here, and then I can do some editing. So if I went up to Edit, NC Program, clicked on this, this brings up an editor that I can use now. So I no longer have to edit in my Word file. So I can come down here and I can search through here, and I can look for T2. I want it to spot drill maybe 130 deep. Now you'll see when I make changes, anything that I delete, it turns into red with a line through it. Anything I add new makes it blue with it underlined. So I'm going to save this, and you'll see when I do the save, it overwrote that. So if you've yet to save it, it'll look wrong. So if I do some gibberish here, until I save it, that will not be there. So I just delete this. Close out my edited file. And then I'm going to reopen my NC program over here for simulation. Now if I were to go through this and play it, you'll see that that's spotted my hole a little bit deeper. So that's the basic walkthrough on Vericut and how to get it to work for you.